Friggin' blood and there we go. I finally got the piece cut to make the front floorboards. Rear floors on there. So now that mark is not the two floorboards, that's just the center line of the tank. When I was marking the tank out, I always start in the center line of the side. So that's just one of my previous guides. So I need to make a new line that goes this way, like horizontally or whatever. And I think my floorboards are going to be 18 inches wide and 31 inches long. So I'm going to have to split that 36 in half into 18. Call me crazy, but I'm a big fan of the clouds. Cool things down a little bit. Alright, I cut them outside, or I cut it outside. Keep the dust down. Get that aluminum oxide that I hate so much. And now I need to fit them. I might use a sheet of cardboard to make a template. Alright, this is not cardboard, but it's exactly 18 inches wide, so that might simplify things a little bit. Now, I've only lined up two things. I'm going to line up this edge along the frame, and I'm going to line up where it stops up front. And from there, I'm going to trace the cutouts from there. Alright, I'm going to have to take it off and trim it a little better, but it goes a little something like this. So that's what shape my driver's floor pan is going to be. And after I take it off and trim it, I'll try doing a mirror image in paper, or take the paper and flip it and see if it fits over there, because there's a little bit of difference here on this side of the transmission, but I don't want huge gaps, and I want it to be pretty close because there's not a lot of leg room. So I want to try to make the floor as big as possible without any problems, and I can always trim it later if it's too big. Alright, so I took my paper, trimmed it better, laid it out onto this sheet of steel, and traced my lines. I mostly just put dots in the corners. Like, I put a dot on the edge and a dot here, a dot here, dot here, and then I just sort of connected the dots, because the paper paper is not really strong like cardboard. So anyway, if I flip that upside down with the painted side down, because that's the way I'm doing it, with this painted side down, this should be the driver's side floor pan. And the passenger side is going to be very similar, except for I don't need as big of a notch here. Everything should be the same on the passenger side, except for this notch here. First friggin' try, boys. First try. Didn't even have to. I actually cut inside of the yellow line. I use that yellow marker all the time. I actually cut inside of the yellow line because I figured I might have to trim it later. But man, I tell you, it fits like a glove. It fits really nice. Really nice. Frig. So I gotta unbolt the cage, and I might drill a hole in the floor there and put the bolt down through everything, both floor pans and the cage. And yeah, I might try it over on the other side. Like I said, the other side's going to be pretty much the same, except for I don't need that. I don't need this huge gap on this that's on the driver's side. I can probably just leave it in there or trim it to a smaller gap. So I'm going to fit it better, or maybe I'll just pick up this sheet, flip it upside down, paint up. I'm going to have the paint down, but maybe if I mirror image it over there, I can tell better than the paper. But so far so good. So far so good. Alright, I laid the mirror image, I flipped it over and put it on the passenger side, and I could work with that. I could make that work, but it's not all the way out to the edge, just quite as flush as the other side, and it's not as tight in this corner as the other side. And I don't need as much room here as I do on the other side. So I'm going to make it a little bit wider here, and maybe from here all the way. I'm going to make it probably 3/8 of an inch or half an inch wider all the way across. But it'll be pretty much the same thing, except for the transmission doesn't have all those bulky pieces over here. Alright, I drew this side out about half an inch wider, and I think that's going to be what I need on the transmission side. A little bit wider for the passenger transmission side of the floor pan. And the other side is identical, or yeah, this notch is identical, and this side is half inch wider. Black hole sun, won't you come? First try, like a glove. She fits just like a glove, boys. She fits. She fits. Just enough wiggle room on both sides. Just enough. That corner looks close, but it's not. There is a spot right there that's close. Might grind that a little bit. But front floors are both made. The back floor's made. The floors are made. Made in the shade. It's like Cat in a Hat, but different. So there she is. They seem to fit good. And now I'm going to have to do some fastening and whatnot. And possibly a transmission tunnel cover. But for now, that's not bad. I might be able to bolt them down, and then I can work my seats in a little better. It'll be easier to mount the seats and figure them out better. Well, I temporarily clamped the headlights back into position. That's kind of where I like them to be. Yeah. What do you think? There's no fenders, there's no hood, there's no body panels as of yet. But I imagine I'll have to do something a little bit. I'm not going to build the whole body, but I might build a few panels, including a hood. and definitely mud guards, or possibly some type of fenders. Well, right now I've got the cage hinged up on here, and I just got it hinged up in the air, and I'm doing the front floor pans. I've got them cut and trimmed, well, not really trimmed, but I just took some of the sharp edges off, and they lay in there nice. I've got that one drilled and ready to go. This one's drilled and now it's ready to go. So I've got to lay the cage, hinge it back down again, and put the bolts to her. Oh, let the camera adjust. Well, it might be hard to tell because it's dark in here, but I got the floors. It's on like Donkey Kong. So the back one is one big piece, and the front ones are two separate pieces. And yeah, I got them tucked in there, and I just one bolt, the one that holds the cage down. Actually, it holds that one single bolt holds this floorboard for now. Well, part of that floorboard, part of this floorboard, and the cage to the frame. And there's nothing else holding the floor in, so I'm going to have to do some more bolting or welding probably tomorrow. Well, all the floors are made up and mocked up, and yeah, still need to fasten them down better. The rear floor is only held down by the 6 cage bolts, 1, 2, 3 on each side, but it's pretty secure. The front floor pans are only held in with 1 bolt there from the cage. That bolt actually goes through the front floor and the rear floor and the cage and the frame. That bolt goes through about 4 different pieces. So I need to secure it in more positions, and then I can probably work on the seats. Okay, I've clamped it down. I got this corner positioned, and then I clamped that corner down, and I slid the seat forward and back to check for, right now it's all the way forward, so to check for leg room in the front and check for leg room in the back. So the seat's all the way ahead now, and it can go back quite a bit, and I've only marked the outside, so clamped it and marked it there with my yellow marker, and marked here. And the inside rails, I can do them later. Right now they're just sitting on the floor. Well, I started to rivet this floor pan in, and I've got lots of rivets, different sizes, and the old handheld, the old manual rivet gun. So I'll probably do some rivets here and on the frame, all where it needs to be fastened down before I finish the seats. Alright, I just went on a friggin' rivet spree. Put rivets along there. I guess I haven't finished this side yet. I need to do 2 more here. Some along there. So, there's one on each side that goes into the cross member there. Some of these are actually sticking up. I don't know why. Most of them turned out pretty good. But the odd one, there's the odd one that's sharp and sticking up. That's going to be under the seats. I might grind it down anyway because that's kind of sharp. But I don't know what the frig's going on there. Most of them turned out pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. I have no clue what's going on with these ones. Bastards. Yeah. So I started, I got the front ones riveted down. That side's all mostly done. So I started doing along the rear frame rails, and this is where the curled edge was, where it was curled up. This is the biggest floor section in the rear, and it had a kind of a curly edge, so I'm clamping it down, hammering it down, and putting the rivets to it. So the floorboards, they were removable, but not anymore. The only way to remove them now would be to drill all those rivets out. You can drill rivets fairly easily, especially these ones because they're aluminum. But I'm going to go ahead and fasten her down and keep on trucking. You can see where the edge is rolled up a little bit here. And that's why I'm clamping it down and hammering it down as I go. I'm going to start at the front and work my way back and lay it down. Well, I set the seat back in again, and These brackets are filthy. The car that I got the seats out of, it was pretty filthy. I got these 3/8 carriage bolts, and I'm just going to drop them down through. Wow, they're kind of nice. So from there, I might have a little bit of wiggle room, so I can wiggle the seat into position. There's not much, but there's a little bit of wiggle room in the front here. So I'll make it, I'll wiggle there into where I want it, and I'll mark these inside holes. I'm gonna try. I think there's a cross member near here, and I'm gonna try to hit it. Otherwise, I'll have to avoid it completely. I shifted these inner ones. I shifted them forward just a hair. I got flexibility, and I got wiggle room. So by doing that, by shifting them ahead just a hair, I had the tracks locked into the same position, so they should be good, the left track and right track. But anyway, what I did was I lined up almost perfectly with the cross member underneath. So when I put the bolt through, it's going to go through the floor and the seat and the cross member. So I think the driver's seat is ready to go on like Donkey Kong. Well, I'd like to say that I have the driver's seat permanently bolted down, but I don't. So it's not sitting level. So I'm gonna have to put some spacers under the passenger side to make it sit level better. That way they're not leaning into each other, because the frame rail is like, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch higher than the floor or than the center, and that's the cross members are a little bit lower than the frame rail, and this side is bolted to the cross member and this side is bolted to the frame rail. So I'm going to have to compensate for that, and I might just leave it there for now. And if I space the seat up, I might space all four up. I realize that that side has to be a little higher, and that's the reason why I need spacers to begin with. But there might be a more comfortable leg position if the seat is a little higher. So I might have to do that depending on the leg room and whatnot. I think I've got the seat slid all the way ahead right now. And that's all the way back. There's quite a bit of leg room there when you slide it all the way back. But most of the UTVs, you're sitting up a little bit higher. Okay, it's raining outside, and I measured that outside rear bolt, the outermost rear bolt on the driver's seat, and it was 4 inches behind this bolt here for the cage. So I measured 4 inches back, and about an inch and an eighth or an inch and a quarter in. So I drilled a hole there. I didn't even mock up the seat. I'm just duplicating that measurement over there. I still haven't leveled that seat up yet, but I can level it up anytime or put spacers under it anytime. So now I might set the seat on here and do some more measurements, and before I mark and drill the holes, try to make it the same as the driver's seat. Okay, so these brackets on this seat here are completely friggin' different. This is actually the driver's seat out of the Sunfire, and that's actually the passenger seat that I mounted on the driver's side. But these brackets are different, and the hole that I made is probably not gonna work. I might have to relocate that hole. For some reason I figured it would be in the same position as the other side, but maybe I should have known better. So I'm either gonna have to trim this this corner, or trim this bracket, or both, just to make it fit better. So yeah, that's what I'm up against right now on the passenger side. Alright, I've got them both slid all the way forward. This one is not bolted down yet, but I'm sliding them both forward on the tracks because to make sure they're in the same position. And I had to do some modifications, but that drill that the hole that I drilled, sorry, I think I can make it work. After at first I didn't think it would work, but after modifying the seat bracket and the cage bracket, I think that's where it needs to be anyway. So I did drill the hole in the right spot, but the seat brackets were a little bit different, so I had to work with those. But now I've got the seats in the same plane, and that bolt lines up perfect on both sides. That pivot bolt lines up with this indent here. So I guess I did drill the hole in the right spot, and I'm gonna put one bolt in there. I didn't bring any more 3/8 carriage bolts with me, but I'll just leave that in there loose for now while I line up and mark the other ones. Make sure they're in line. Those seats are super dirty. Wow. Wow. Shouldn't take that long to drill through a floorboard. Some pretty good steel. It's pretty thick too, actually. Well, I got all the passenger seat holes done, all the driver's seat holes done. So I'm going to temporarily bolt it down until I get the spacers made up at a later date, at a later date. Well, I mentioned earlier that I'm going to need spacers on the closest to the transmission because the way the seat was sitting, the level, and I thought it was because of the floor. But you can see that this bracket, this big flat bracket here, it's sitting on the floor, and this is sitting on the floor, and the back one is sitting on the floor, but the inside ones, they're not, and this bracket is. So that tells me that the part that's out of whack is not my floor. It's these tracks, these brackets. So I'm guessing that in the car, this side is a little bit higher, or the frame, or whatever this bolts to in the car. I thought it was perfectly flat. That's why I chose these type of seats, because I thought they were perfectly flat. But this side is going to have to be raised anyway, and I think that must be the way they are, because that's not touching the floor, and that's pretty much all the way down. I could tighten it, or yeah, I could draw it together with the nut on the underneath, but I've just noticed that it's not sitting properly. So maybe it's not the floor after all that was causing the seats to tilt in, because they were sort of tilting. Let me focus here. They're sort of leaning towards each other a little bit. I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, they're leaning in towards each other a little bit. So I thought it was the floor, but it might be a combination of the floor and these brackets. So clearly the floor on the Sunfire is a little bit higher in the center. I should have known that, but they just look at all the brackets, they look so square and straight, or so I thought. But that's no big deal, because I was going to space the inside anyway, or I might space up. I mentioned earlier spacing all four up, so to give you more vertical leg room or whatever. So instead of your legs being straight out where there's not much room, they're more hanging down, sort of. That's all the way back. That's all the way ahead. Alright, passenger side, it's not secured down. I put the bolts down through, but I didn't put the nuts on yet. Or maybe I did. Yeah, the nuts are on there, but they're just loose, I guess. But anyway, that's all the way ahead. That's all the way back. And let's compare all the way back with the driver's seat. That's all the way back. I'm pretty happy with that. They're pretty much in line. They're pretty good that way. But I still need to do some spacing. The shifter, the gear shifter is going to be close to the driver's seat. Might have to work with that or do something there. Of course, the shifter is supposed to be taller anyway. Well, I got the front seats almost all the way back right now, and that leaves lots of leg room in the front. The seats are almost all the way back. I think I got them all the way back, and then I moved them ahead one notch. But there's not a whole lot of room in the back seat area. So I have to figure something out. I know the Honda UTVs, they have like a box, and they have seats that like fold up, so it's either a box or a seat. So I might do something like that, because the back seats are going to be awful tight. I was hoping to have four matching, because they're kind of like camo, and I figured I could fit them back here. But I'm not sure. It's going to be tight if I do fit four full-size buckets like that. It's going to be tight. I just came out of Canadian Tire, and I got some rust paint for the dune buggy for the UTV. It says right on it, paint over rust or whatever.
Hi there, what can I get for you?
Can I get a tropical fruit chill?
What size?
Medium, and a large triple, and a Boston cream donut in a box.
Thunder.
the thunder, thunder, feel the thunder, lightning and the thunder. I had to put a band-aid on my boo-boo. Friggin' blood and busted my knuckle yesterday working on the buggy, working on the DIY UTV. And I got some special bandages. You wouldn't even believe them, but they're made for like fingers and stuff. So yeah, check that out. What do you think of that? Had the headlights just sitting there closer to the edge. Had them just sitting there like closer to the edge like that. And I was hammering away, or I was doing something, and this one fell off. Somewhere here it got scratched. Oh well. So I still haven't done anything with the headlights yet. I've been focusing on the floor. Did a whole bunch of rivets. It looks like I forgot to do one there. Those are 8th inch. That's the size. 8th inch aluminum rivets. If I had steel rivets, I'd probably use steel. Actually, I might have some steel ones. I just haven't really checked. So anyway, I've got a bunch of these aluminum ones, so that's what I'm using. Working with what I got. I could have welded it. I could have bolted it. I could have done plug welds like that. But got the floors pretty much licked. Pretty much. I still need to go around back here and do one in the cross member, but from here up, they're all secured. There's one in the cross member there. The floors are pretty much licked, like I said. First, I had some extra weight on there, so just ignore that. That's just extra weight. And the front seats, they're drilled and ready to be permanently fastened, but I think I'm going to put some spacers under them first and try to level them and raise them just slightly. They're not quite perfectly level for me. Just a recap here. And I got some paint. I don't know why, but I got some rust paint. Let me focus again. French. English. For bare or rusted metal. I have both. These tank sheets, those are bare on the inside, I think. I think that's bare. It might have some sort of coating on it. And I got rusted metal, bare and rusted. Rusted down there. Rusted here. Rusted everywhere. So I got that and some paint brushes, so I might just slop some Oxford blue. Focus. I need to get a new camera, boys. I'm using the iPhone right now. Little blue dune buggy. I guess next is going to be steering and brakes. Once I get the seats spaced out and whatnot. Steering and brakes. Actually, if I had steering and brakes, I could drive it because the engine's running and the transmission's working and the drive shaft, the whole drive line, rear end, all that's hooked up. If I had brakes and steering, it could probably be drivable. I could probably test it.